For reasons he keeps to himself, Marcus Stone, a former champion boxer and war veteran, is forced to take a job as a night shift janitor at a local bar in the roughest part of Detroit. What the local street gang doesn't realize is that they're pushing around a man who once held the middleweight championship belt. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The flickering neon signs cast harsh shadows across Marcus Stone's face as he locks up Pete's Bar and Grill at 3 a.m. At 42, his weathered features and slight limp make him look older than his years. Most people see just another worn-down veteran working a dead-end job, never guessing that his hands once earned him glory in the ring. "Hey, old-timer, you forgot to take out the trash." The voice belongs to Ray Martinez, leader of the Los Lobos gang that considers this street their territory. Behind him, 4 younger gang members snicker, their gold chains glinting in the streetlight. One of them, barely out of his teens, makes a show of flicking open a switchblade. Marcus keeps walking, his military-ingrained discipline keeping his breathing steady. 5 years ago, before Afghanistan, before the injury, he would have handled this differently, but now he has reasons to stay under the radar. His right hand unconsciously touches his side where shrapnel once tore through muscle and bone. "I'm talking to you, janitor." Ray's voice carries that dangerous edge that Marcus recognizes all too well, the sound of someone looking to prove something. The gang leader's leather jacket bears fresh bloodstains, evidence of their earlier activities that night. Marcus turns slowly, his scarred knuckles hidden in his pockets. "The dumpster's already been emptied. Have a good night, gentlemen." His voice is calm, measured, the same tone he used to use before stepping into the ring. For a moment, muscle memory almost makes him bounce on the balls of his feet, but he forces himself to stay still. Ray steps closer, either not noticing or not caring about the way Marcus subtly shifts his weight to his back foot. The younger man's breath reeks of cheap whiskey and marijuana. "Maybe you need a lesson in respect, old man. This is our street. Everything that happens here happens because we allow it." Behind them, a police siren wails in the distance. The gang members tense, but Marcus doesn't flinch. He's faced worse in Kandahar, and long before that, in championship bouts that tested every ounce of his resolve. His eyes quickly scan their positions, an old habit from both the ring and the battlefield. 2 on his left, 2 on his right, Ray in front. Poor tactical positioning on their part. "Tomorrow night," Ray snarls, backing away, "you're going to start paying us protection money. 20% of what you make or things get uncomfortable." He pulls out a phone, snapping a photo of Marcus. "And don't think about running to the cops. We know what you look like now." As they disappear into the shadows of the Detroit night, Marcus touches the chain around his neck. Not gold like theirs, but steel, holding his military dog tags and a tarnished championship ring he hasn't worn in years. The ring's diamonds caught the neon light for a moment, a reminder of glory, days long past. Inside the bar, the owner, Pete Gonzalez, watches through the window. The old Mexican immigrant had taken a chance hiring Marcus 3 weeks ago, no questions asked. Now, as Marcus limps back inside to retrieve his coat, Pete's weathered face shows concern. "Those boys," Pete says, polishing a glass with trembling hands. "They're not like the gangs from my day. Last month they put 2 of my regulars in the hospital. Maybe we should just pay them." Marcus shakes his head, checking his reflection in the mirror behind the bar. The scar above his right eye, a souvenir from his title defense against Rodriguez in 15, has started to fade, but the newer ones from Afghanistan still stand out angry and red against his dark skin. What Ray and his gang don't realize is that Marcus Stone isn't working at Pete's by choice. After everything that happened overseas, after losing his boxing license due to the injury, this job is his last chance at keeping a promise that might just cost him everything he has left. The Department of Veterans Affairs letter in his pocket feels heavy, reminding him why he can't afford to draw attention to himself, why he needs this job more than his pride. As he steps out into the Detroit night, A newspaper caught in the wind tumbles past. The headline reads, "Local crime rate soars as police budget cuts take effect." Marcus catches a glimpse of another headline below it. "Whatever happened to Marcus, the Marine Stone?" 10 years after the championship. He lets the paper blow away, disappearing into the darkness like the life he once knew. Marcus's apartment is a far cry from the luxury penthouse he once owned in Las Vegas. The one-room efficiency on Detroit's east side barely fits a bed and a small kitchenette, but the walls tell a different story. Newspaper clippings, carefully preserved despite their age, chronicle a career most have forgotten. Marine turned boxer takes middleweight crown. Stone cold, the unstoppable champion. 7 successful title defenses. Stone's legacy grows. He sits heavily on the edge of his bed, wincing as his bad leg protests. The pain is worse on cold nights like this. Reaching under the bed, he pulls out a worn shoebox and empties its contents onto the threadbare blanket. Medical bills, VA correspondence, and a photograph he can barely look at anymore. The phone rings. A cheap burner phone, not the latest iPhone he used to carry. The caller ID shows Sarah Memorial Hospital. Marcus closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and answers. "Mr. Stone?" The night nurse's voice is gentle but professional. "Your daughter had another difficult night. The experimental treatment Dr. Chen suggested. Well, the insurance company still won't approve it without the full payment up front." Marcus glances at the photo on his bed. A younger version of himself holding a laughing teenage girl on his shoulders after winning his last title defense. Before Afghanistan. Before the IED that sent him home with a medical discharge. Before the rare form of leukemia turned their world upside down. "How much time do we have, Sandra?" His voice is barely a whisper. "Dr. Chen says if we don't start the treatment within 2 months..." She doesn't finish the sentence. She doesn't have to. The treatment costs $200,000. His boxing fortune, once substantial, had been drained by earlier failed treatments and a series of bad investments made while he was deployed. The VA benefits help with basic care, but experimental treatments aren't covered. He's already sold his belts, his cars, even his championship ring. The one around his neck is just a replica, a reminder of what he's lost. A knock at the door interrupts his thoughts. Through the peephole he sees 2 familiar faces. Jerry, the Hammer, Hamilton, his old sparring partner, and Mike Collins, his former manager. He hasn't spoken to either since losing his boxing license. "Looking a little rough there, champ," Jerry says as Marcus lets them in. The big man's once imposing frame has gone soft with age, but his handshake is still crushing. "Word on the street is you're working as a janitor in Los Lobos territory." Mike, always the more direct of the two, cuts to the chase. "We heard about Katie. Why didn't you come to us?" Marcus sinks into his only chair, suddenly feeling every one of his 42 years. "You both did enough after the accident. I can't ask for more." "Actually," Mike says, pulling out a business card, "we're here about an opportunity. There's this guy Viktor Petrov, Russian businessman. He runs underground fights out of an old warehouse in Hamtramck. No commission, no rules, no questions about expired licenses." Marcus stares at the card. "Those fights are illegal. So is what those Los Lobos punks are doing to shopkeepers in their territory," Jerry counters. "One fight in Petrov's ring pays what you make in 3 months at that bar. And from what I hear, you'll need a lot more than janitor's wages real soon." The medical bills on his bed seem to stare back at him accusingly. Katie's smiling face in the photograph reminds him why he can't afford pride anymore. "I haven't fought in 5 years," Marcus says quietly. "The doctor said with the shrapnel damage." Mike leans forward. "1 fight. That's all you need to see if you can still do it. Petrov's offering $5,000 for Friday night. $5,000. It would barely dent what Katie needs, but it's more than he has now. The gang's demand for protection money tomorrow night would take whatever he's managed to save. Think about it, Jerry says as they head for the door. Katie needs her father to fight one more time. Just not the way you've been fighting, hiding who you are, letting punks half your age push you around. After they leave, Marcus pulls out his old hand wraps from the shoebox. The fabric is frayed but still sturdy. His hands move automatically, muscle memory taking over as he wraps them like he did hundreds of times before. In the cracked mirror above his sink, he sees a ghost of his former self. The stance is still there, even with the limp. The jab still snaps out fast enough to surprise him, though the old injury makes his right cross slower than it used to be. The VA letter on his bed reminds him why he gave up fighting, but Katie's latest medical report tells him why he might have to start again. Sometimes, he realizes, a man's greatest fight isn't the one he chooses. It's the one forced upon him by circumstances he never saw coming. The next evening at Pete's bar starts like any other. Marcus mops the floors, wipes down tables, and tries not to think about the VA letter or Katie's medical bills. The regulars barely notice him, just another shadow moving through their alcohol-hazed evening. Only Pete watches him with worried eyes, knowing what's coming. At exactly 10 p.m., Ray Martinez and his Los Lobos crew swagger through the door. This time there are 8 of them, not 5. The message is clear. No room for resistance. The younger patrons quickly clear out, while the older ones suddenly find their drinks fascinating, eyes down, shoulders hunched. "Evening, old-timer," Ray calls out, sprawling in a booth like he owns it. His gold chains catch the dim bar lights. Time to talk business. Marcus continues wiping down the bar, his movements deliberate and calm. A lifetime ago, he'd studied opponents just like Ray, fighters who mistook patience for weakness, silence for fear. "Hey!" One of Ray's lieutenants, a heavily tattooed man they call Snake, slams his hand on the bar. "The boss is talking to you." Pete appears from the kitchen, wringing his hands. "Please, no trouble. We're just trying to run a business here." Ray's smile doesn't reach his eyes. "That's exactly what we're here to discuss. Business." He pulls out a smartphone showing a social media post. "See, we did some checking after last night. Thought you looked familiar." The phone displays an old boxing article with a photo of Marcus in his prime, standing over a fallen opponent. The headline reads, "Marine wins 4th title defense." "Imagine our surprise," Ray continues, "finding out our new janitor friend used to be somebody. What happened, champ? War mess you up that bad? Or did you just lose your nerve?" Marcus feels the old, familiar tightening in his chest, the pre-fight tension he used to channel into victory. "I'm just here to work," he says quietly. "Nothing more. Work's gonna cost you now." Ray stands, moving to the bar. "Actually, knowing who you are, let's make it 30%. Call it a celebrity tax." Behind the bar, Marcus's hand brushes against the metal baseball bat Pete keeps for emergencies. 5 years ago, he wouldn't have needed it. 5 years ago, these punks wouldn't have made it through the door. "I can't pay that," Marcus says simply. "You know I can't." Snake moves first, grabbing Marcus's collar. It's a rookie move. Any trained fighter knows better than to get that close to an opponent's hands. For a split second, muscle memory almost takes over. Marcus could break the hold, counter with an uppercut that would send Snake sprawling. Instead, he takes the shove, stumbling back against the liquor shelves. Bottles rattle but don't fall. "Maybe you need motivation?" Ray says, nodding to his crew. 3 of them head to the kitchen. The sounds of breaking glass and overturning furniture follow. Pete's anguished face tells the story of a man watching his life's work being destroyed. "Stop," Marcus says, his voice carrying the command tone he hasn't used since Afghanistan. "Your problem's with me, not the bar." Ray laughs. "Our problem's with anyone who doesn't show proper respect." He pulls out a switchblade, the same one his young lieutenant had brandished the night before. "Maybe we start with that pretty championship face of yours." What happens next Takes less than 5 seconds. Ray lunges with the knife, telegraphing his move like an amateur. Marcus's body reacts on pure instinct, years of training overwhelming his conscious decision to stay passive. His left hand deflects the knife arm while his right, the bad one, the one with nerve damage from the shrapnel, snaps out in a short hook that catches Ray on the temple. The gang leader crumples like a marionette with cut strings. The bar goes silent. Snake and the others stare in shock at their fallen leader. Even through the pain screaming up his right arm, Marcus maintains his fighting stance, weight on his back foot, hands up, ready for what comes next. "You're dead," Snake snarls, pulling a gun from his waistband. "You're so dead, old man." The bar erupts in chaos. Patrons dive for cover as Snake's gun comes up. Marcus calculates angles, distances, remembering combat training about disarming armed opponents, but before anyone can move, a new voice cuts through the chaos. "I wouldn't do that." Viktor Petrov stands in the doorway, flanked by 4 men who make the Los Lobos look like children playing at being tough. The Russian's expensive suit and gentle smile can't hide the predator beneath. "Mr. Stone and I have business to discuss," Petrov says smoothly. "Take your friend and go." "Consider this a professional courtesy." Snake hesitates, gun still raised. One of Petrov's men clears his throat, opening his jacket just enough to show his own weapon. The message is clear. This isn't a fight the Los Lobos can win. As Ray's crew drags their unconscious leader out, Petrov turns to Marcus. Impressive restraint, showing just enough skill to handle the situation without revealing your full capabilities. But now, we both know you can still fight. He places a business card on the bar. "The offer has gone up to 10,000. Friday night. Your daughter's treatment won't pay for itself." After Petrov leaves, Marcus picks up the card with trembling fingers. The pain in his right hand is worse than it's been in years, but something else is coursing through his system, something he hasn't felt since his last professional fight. Adrenaline, purpose, the clarity that comes with accepting a path forward no matter how dangerous. Pete emerges from behind the bar, surveying the damage to his establishment. "You could have handled them all," he says quietly. "Why didn't you?" Marcus stares at Petrov's card. "Because once I start fighting for real, I'm not sure I can stop. And there are worse things in this city than the Los Lobos." But as he helps Pete clean up the broken glass and overturned furniture, Marcus knows he's already crossed a line. Sometimes the hardest punch isn't the one you throw. It's the one you've been pulling for so long that finally slips out, changing everything. The warehouse district in Hamtramck looks abandoned at first glance, but Marcus knows better. 5 tours in Afghanistan taught him to spot the signs. The 2 clean loading dock, fresh tire tracks in old mud, security cameras disguised as broken fixtures. This is what a professional operation trying to look defunct really looks like. He checks his phone. 2 missed calls from the hospital, 1 from Jerry. The old replica championship ring hangs heavy around his neck as he approaches the side door Petrov's card had specified. A mountain of a man with a Slavic face and cauliflower ears greets him with a grunt. "Hand wraps?" the man asks, his accent thick. Marcus holds them up, his old ones from the shoebox, frayed but familiar. The guard nods, patting him down efficiently before leading him inside. The interior is a study in contrasts. The outer areas maintain the abandoned warehouse facade, but the central space houses a professional boxing ring, complete with lighting rigs and what looks like streaming equipment carefully concealed in the rafters. The air smells of leather, sweat, and something else. Fear, maybe, or desperation. Marcus recognizes it from his war days. The prodigal champion arrives. Petrov emerges from a makeshift office, still in his expensive suit despite the surroundings. "I was beginning to worry you'd changed your mind." 10,000, 1 fight, Marcus says. That was the deal. Petrov's smile doesn't waver. "Of course. But first, meet your trainer for the evening." He gestures to a figure emerging from the shadows. "I believe you two have history." Marcus's breath catches. "Sophia?" Sophia Chen looks different from when she was his cut woman during his championship days. Her hair has gone gray at the temples, and new scars mark her hands, but her eyes still hold that same sharp intelligence. "Hello, Marine," she says quietly. "Long time." "Sophia's been with our organization for 3 years, Petrov explains. "She'll get you ready for tonight. You have 4 hours until the fight." He checks his Rolex. "I have business to attend to. Sophia will handle everything." As soon as Petrov leaves, Sophia's professional demeanor cracks. "What are you doing here, Marcus? After what happened in your last sanctioned fight?" "Katie's sick," he cuts her off. "The experimental treatment—" "I know about Katie, the whole boxing world knows. But this?" She gestures at the warehouse. "This isn't just underground fighting. Petrov's operation. There are no rules here. No doctors at ringside, no safety protocols." Marcus starts wrapping his hands, the familiar ritual calming his nerves. "I just need one fight. $10,000 closer to saving my daughter." Sophia grabs his right hand, fingers probing the scar tissue. "The nerve damage hasn't healed. You're compensating with your shoulder, but it's putting stress on the old shrapnel wounds." Her eyes meet his. "You're not just risking a loss here, Marcus. You're risking permanent injury, or worse. You could have warned me about this place before now," he says. "You knew I was coming. I tried calling, changed my number 3 times trying to reach you." She pulls medical tape from her kit. "But you disappeared after Afghanistan. Even Jerry couldn't find you until recently." As she works on his hands, Marcus surveys the growing crowd of well-dressed spectators filtering in. They don't look like typical fight fans, more like business executives and crime bosses, men and women who treat violence as evening entertainment. "Your opponent," Sophia says, following his gaze, "goes by the Butcher. Real name unknown. He's won his last 6 fights here. 3 opponents never fought again." She taps his bad leg. "He'll target your injuries. In this circuit, medical histories get sold to the highest bidder." Marcus starts his warm-up, testing his range of motion. The old injuries complain, but the muscle memory remains. "Tell me what I need to know." He's younger, faster, and fights dirty. Likes to use elbows in the clinch. No referee means no rules about headbutts or low blows. Sophia's voice drops lower. But he gets sloppy after the 3rd round. Drops his right when he's tired. A bell rings somewhere in the warehouse. Petrov's voice carries over hidden speakers, welcoming the growing crowd of spectators. The betting has already started. Marcus catches snippets of conversation about odds and injury predictions. "One more thing," Sophia says, helping him with his gloves. "Petrov doesn't just run fights, he owns fighters. If you win impressively tonight, he'll want to make you a regular attraction, and he doesn't take no for an answer." Marcus thinks of Katie in her hospital bed, of the treatment she needs. "Then I'll have to win unimpressively." Sophia's laugh is bitter. "In this place? Against the Butcher? Just surviving will be impressive enough." She finishes with his gloves, then grabs his face like she used to before championship bouts. "Listen to me. Fight smart, stay alive, but whatever happens, don't let Petrov own you. Some debts cost more than money." The final bell rings. It's time. As Marcus heads toward the ring, he catches his reflection in a dirty window. His stance has changed. No more pretending to be a broken-down janitor. Every step, despite the limp, carries the muscle memory of countless fights. For better or worse, he's a boxer again. The crowd's murmur grows as the Butcher enters the ring, a massive man with dead eyes and scars that speak of fights far worse than anything in Marcus's professional career. But Marcus doesn't feel fear. Instead, there's a terrible clarity. He thinks of Katie, of the hospital bills, of all the fights ahead of him. Sometimes the hardest opponent isn't the one in the ring. It's the price you're willing to pay for victory. The crowd fades away as Marcus follows Sophia to a makeshift locker room, really just a partitioned area of the warehouse with a bench and some basic equipment. The familiar pre-fight ritual begins, but everything feels wrong. No commissioned doctors for medical checks, no rules meeting, no official glove inspection. "Remember," Sophia says, working on his shoulder muscles, "this isn't a boxing match. It's a fight." Her experienced hands find knots of scar tissue, making Marcus wince. The butcher started in Russian prison fights. He doesn't just want to win, he wants to hurt people. Through the thin walls, they can hear Petrov working the crowd. The betting is heavily against Marcus, a washed-up boxer with known injuries against an undefeated underground fighter. The odds make him smile grimly. At least someone's going to make money tonight. "Show me what you can do," Sophia demands. "Full combination on the pads. I need to see what we're working with." Marcus squares up as Sophia holds the punch mitts. His jab comes out sharp, some things you never forget. But when he throws the right cross, pain shoots through his shoulder. The old injury from Afghanistan screams in protest. "Just as I thought," Sophia mutters. "That right hand is maybe 60% of what it used to be. You're compensating with your shoulder, which is putting stress on the shrapnel wounds." She demonstrates a modified stance. "Keep your right hand higher, shorter punches. Let your opponent wear himself out coming to you." They work the pads for 20 minutes. Despite the pain, muscle memory takes over. The rhythms of fighting return: slip, jab, hook, move. But Sophia sees every grimace, every shortened combination. "The butcher will target your right side," she warns. "He's known for breaking people down systematically. Remember Rodriguez?" Marcus remembers. His last professional fight, 5 years ago. The one that cost him his boxing license. Rodriguez was different. Professional rules, referees. "And you still ended up in the hospital," Sophia cuts him off. "The butcher makes Rodriguez look like an amateur. She's interrupted by a young man entering their space, one of Petrov's assistants. "Mr. Stone? A phone call for you. Mr. Petrov insists you take it." Marcus follows him to a small office where a phone sits off the hook. He already knows who it is. "Dad?" Katie's voice is weak, but it's the best sound he's heard all day. "Hey, sweetheart. How are you feeling?" "The doctors say my numbers are down again." She tries to sound brave, but he can hear the fear underneath. "Where are you?" "It sounds weird there." Marcus watches through the office window as more spectators arrive, many carrying briefcases that probably contain betting money. "Just picking up some extra work, baby. Everything's going to be fine." "Promise?" The word hits him like a punch to the gut. "I promise. Whatever it takes." After hanging up, Marcus returns to find Sophia in an intense conversation with Jerry, who must have just arrived. They stop talking when they see him. "The butcher's warming up," Jerry says, nodding toward the ring. "He's bigger than I remembered." Through the partition, they can see their opponent shadow boxing. His movement is raw, but powerful, each punch thrown with destructive intent. But it's his eyes that worry Marcus, dead and cold like a shark's. "Tell him what you just told me," Sophia demands of Jerry. Jerry shifts uncomfortably. "Word is, Petrov has big money bet against you. He's telling people you're damaged goods, easy money." "So?" Marcus starts his own warm-up, throwing light combinations at the shadow. "So why'd he offer you 10 grand for the fight?" "This whole thing stinks. Petrov's planning something." Sophia nods. The butcher's last 3 opponents? They didn't just lose. They were hospitalized. One still in a coma. Petrov made a fortune betting on the exact round they'd go down. Marcus processes this as he continues warming up. His right hand throbs, but he pushes through. "You think he set this up to be a show? Make an example of the fallen champion?" "Worse," Jerry says. "We think he's going to offer you a choice after the butcher breaks you down. Work for him permanently or never box again. He likes collecting fighters with debts they can't repay." The implications sink in. Marcus remembers Katie's voice on the phone, remembers her asking him to promise everything would be okay. He looks at his hands. scarred knuckles that have already seen too many fights, too many wars. "I need this money," he says finally. "Katie needs it." Sophia grabs his arm. "Then listen carefully. We have 15 minutes to modify your style. Forget everything you knew about professional boxing. I'm going to teach you how to survive in there." What follows is the strangest boxing lesson of Marcus's life. Sophia shows him dirty tricks he never would have considered in his professional days. How to make an accidental headbutt look natural, how to thumb an opponent's eyes in a clinch, how to step on feet to disrupt balance. "I don't fight like this," Marcus protests. "Tonight, you do," Sophia insists, "because the butcher will do worse. This isn't about winning pretty. It's about surviving and protecting your daughter's future." The final bell rings. Time for the main event. As Marcus heads for the ring, Jerry grabs his shoulder. "Remember who you are," his old friend says. "Not just the champion, the Marine. Sometimes surviving is its own victory." Marcus nods, then steps through the crowd toward his destiny. The warehouse lights seem brighter now, the crowd's murmur more intense. Across the ring, the butcher cracks his neck, his dead eyes fixed on Marcus's right side. In the front row, Petrov watches with his calculating smile, probably already counting his betting profits. But he doesn't know what Marcus knows, that sometimes a man's greatest strength isn't in his punches, but in what he's willing to endure for those he loves. The ring looks smaller up close, its canvas stained with memories of previous fights. No referee steps forward to give instructions. There aren't any rules to explain. The butcher rolls his shoulders, his massive frame casting a shadow across the ring. Up close, Marcus can see the prison tattoos on his opponent's neck. Notches, he realizes. One for each victim. The bell rings without ceremony. No touching gloves, no show of sportsmanship. The butcher charges immediately, throwing heavy hooks that would end the fight if they landed. But 5 years of rust haven't erased 2 decades of boxing fundamentals. Marcus slips the first punch, blocks the second, and circles away from the third. "Still got some moves, champion?" The butcher's accent is thick, his smile revealing metal teeth. "Let's see how long they last." The crowd roars as the butcher cuts off the ring, forcing Marcus toward the ropes. A massive right hand comes in, but this time, instead of slipping it, Marcus steps inside. Sophia's training kicks in. He drives his shoulder into the butcher's sternum, simultaneously stepping on his lead foot. The bigger man stumbles, surprise flickering across his face. "Good," Sophia shouts from the corner. "Now get out!" Marcus tries to create distance, but his bad leg betrays him. The butcher recovers quickly, launching a knee toward Marcus's midsection. It's an illegal move in boxing, but this isn't boxing. The knee connects, driving the air from Marcus's lungs. He clinches instinctively, buying time to recover. "I smell blood," the butcher whispers in his ear during the clinch. "Smell fear, too. Just like the others." The first round continues like this. The butcher pressing forward with brutal power shots while Marcus relies on experience and technique to survive. But each movement costs him. The old injuries protest, his right hand growing number with each block. In the corner between rounds, Sophia works frantically on his shoulders. "He's trying to wear you down," she says. "Wants you tired before he goes for the finish. You need to hurt him back. My right hand? Forget the right hand. Fight southpaw. Give him a different look." The second round starts worse than the first. The butcher seems energized by Marcus's obvious pain, targeting the right side of his body with savage body shots. One punch slips through Marcus's guard, catching him just above the kidney where shrapnel once tore through muscle. The pain drops him to one knee. "Get up, old man." The butcher circles him like a predator. "Show us why they called you champion." In the front row, Petrov watches with that same calculating smile. Next to him, men in expensive suits check their phones, probably adjusting their bets. They're all waiting for the inevitable, the fallen champion's final humiliation. But they don't know what Marcus knows. Pain is an old friend from his boxing days. Fear, a familiar companion from war. He forces himself up, switching to southpaw stance just as Sophia suggested. The change confuses the butcher momentarily. His rhythm breaks as he adjusts to the new angle. Marcus lands a clean left hook that rocks the bigger man back on his heels. For the first time, those dead eyes show a flicker of concern. Right side's hurt. The butcher calls out to his corner. Time to finish this. What follows is 3 minutes of calculated brutality. The butcher abandons all pretense of technique, simply walking through Marcus's punches to land his own. Each shot targets Marcus's injuries: the leg, the shoulder, the ribs, where shrapnel left its mark. But something strange happens. With each punch absorbed, each new wave of pain, Marcus feels more alive. His military training meshes with boxing muscle memory. He starts timing the butcher's rushes, making him pay with short, accurate counters. "He's gas tanks low," Sophia shouts. "Make him work." She's right. The butcher's punches are slowing, his breathing heavy. He's used to quick victories, not prolonged battles. Marcus survives the round, earning surprised murmurs from the crowd. "Look at Petrov," Jerry whispers during the corner break. He's not smiling anymore. Indeed, the Russian's expression has changed. He's leaning forward now, speaking urgently into his phone. The betting odds are shifting. "End this now," Sophia warns, before he gets desperate. The bell rings for round 4. The butcher charges again, but his movement is labored. Marcus meets him in center ring, no longer retreating. A firefight erupts, the butcher throwing bombs while Marcus picks his shots carefully. Then it happens. Just as Sophia predicted, the butcher drops his right hand when throwing a wild hook. Marcus steps inside, planting his feet despite the pain in his leg. His left hook catches the butcher flush on the chin. The bigger man's eyes go blank, his massive frame tipping backward like a falling tree. The warehouse explodes in chaos. Some spectators cheer while others curse, ripping up betting slips. Petrov's face is a mask of cold fury. The butcher tries to rise at the count of 8, but his legs won't cooperate. Victory should taste sweet, but Marcus feels only exhaustion and worry. He's won the battle, but looking at Petrov's expression, he knows the war is just beginning. Sophia helps him out of the ring as medical personnel finally attend to the butcher. "That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen," she says. "Sometimes they're the same thing." Marcus winces as she probes his ribs. "Think Petrov will pay up?" "He'll pay," Jerry says grimly. "But now you're on his radar. No one's knocked out the butcher before. He'll want you fighting regularly." Marcus watches Petrov arguing with his associates, probably discussing how their sure bet went wrong. "One fight," he says. "That was the deal." But even as he says it, he knows it won't be that simple. The underground fighting world has its own gravity, pulling you deeper once you enter its orbit. And somewhere in a hospital room, Katie is waiting for treatment that costs far more than $10,000. The victory bell rings one final time, its sound echoing through the warehouse like a warning. The back room of Pete's bar is quiet except for the sound of Sophia stitching a cut above Marcus's eye. It's 3 hours after the fight, and his body feels like it's been through another war. Every breath reminds him of the butcher's body shots. Every movement awakens a new pain. "Hold still," Sophia mutters, focused on her work. 4 stitches. "You're lucky. He usually leaves bigger marks." Jerry paces the room, occasionally peering through the blinds at the empty street outside. The envelope containing Marcus's payment sits on the table, $10,000 in crisp hundreds. It feels too easy. "Something's wrong," Jerry says finally. "Petrov paid too quickly, too cleanly. No arguments, no attempts to shortchange you." He turns to Marcus. "When's the last time you heard of a boxing promoter, legit or underground, who paid full price after losing money on betting?" Marcus winces as Sophia applies antiseptic to his ribs. Maybe he's just professional about it. "Professional?" Sophia snorts. The man runs illegal fights out of abandoned warehouses. His last 3 fighters who lost big fights ended up in the hospital or disappeared. She pauses her medical work. The butcher was supposed to hurt you badly enough to force you into Petrov's stable. Instead, you knocked him out. That changes things. A knock at the back door makes them all freeze. Jerry peers through the peephole, then relaxes slightly. It's Pete. The old bar owner enters, looking nervous. You need to see this. He holds up his phone, showing a live stream from what looks like another underground fight. It's all over the fighting circles. They're calling it the resurrection of the Marine. Marcus watches a shaky video of his knockout punch dropping the butcher. The footage has already gathered thousands of views. In the comments, people are talking about the former champion's return, speculating about future fights. This is bad, Jerry says. Very bad. Why? Marcus asks, though he's starting to understand. More attention means better paydays. Katie's treatment. Better paydays mean bigger betting pools, Sophia interrupts. Bigger betting pools mean more interest from people we don't want interested. She looks meaningfully at Pete. Tell him what else you heard. Pete shifts uncomfortably. Los Lobos are talking about revenge. Ray Martinez woke up in the hospital, started making calls. But that's not the worst part. He glances at the door before continuing. Word is, Petrov's operation isn't just about fighting. The matches are a front for money laundering. Every bet placed helps clean cash for some very dangerous people. The implications sink in. Marcus thinks about the well-dressed spectators with their briefcases, the careful way the betting was handled, the professional streaming setup in a supposedly abandoned warehouse. The DA's office has been building a case, Jerry adds. That's the real reason I knew about these fights. I've been helping them track the money, trying to make up for some of my own past mistakes. He faces Marcus directly. Your fight tonight? Those odds against you? It was perfect for moving a lot of dirty money until you won. Sophia finishes bandaging Marcus's ribs. Now they have a problem. The video's gone viral. People will be watching your next fight, including law enforcement. You've accidentally shined a spotlight on an operation that prefers darkness. There won't be a next fight, Marcus says firmly. I got what I needed. Another knock at the door cuts him off. This time, when Jerry checks the peephole, his face goes pale. It's Petrov, and he's not alone. Before anyone can move, the door swings open. Petrov enters with 4 men, all wearing expensive suits that don't quite hide their shoulder holsters. But it's the 5th person who makes Marcus's blood run cold, a tall man in medical scrubs. Dr. Chen? Marcus recognizes Katie's oncologist. What are you doing here? Mr. Stone, Petrov smiles his shark smile. We need to discuss your daughter's treatment options. The doctor won't meet Marcus's eyes as Petrov continues. Such an expensive procedure. Experimental treatments, specialized care. It would be a shame if the hospital's ethics board found reason to deny the application. Marcus starts to rise, but Sophia's hand on his shoulder stops him. His ribs scream in protest anyway. What do you want? He asks, already knowing the answer. Your victory tonight created quite a stir. The prodigal champion returns. Think of the betting possibilities. Petrov's smile widens. 3 more fights. We control the odds. You follow instructions about which round to end things. The money you earn will be substantial. And if I refuse? Then I'm afraid Dr. Chen will have no choice but to report that Katie's case is no longer suitable for the experimental program. Hospital policy, you understand. The room goes quiet. Marcus looks at the envelope of money on the table, enough for maybe 2 weeks of Katie's current treatment, let alone the experimental one. He thinks about his daughter's voice on the phone, about her brave smile hiding the fear. How long do I have to decide? Your next fight is already scheduled, 1 week from tonight. Petrov places another business card on the table. And Marcus? The video of tonight's fight was a nice touch. Good publicity. But if you try something like that again, He glances at Dr. Chen. Well, let's keep things professional. After they leave, the room erupts in urgent whispers. Jerry talks about witness protection. Sophia suggests running. Pete offers to help hide them, but Marcus barely hears them. He's staring at his hands, thinking about how many fights they have left in them, how many compromises his soul can take. We'll figure something out, Sophia says gently. There's always another way. But Marcus isn't so sure. Sometimes the hardest fights aren't about whether you can win. They're about what you're willing to lose in the process. The next few days pass in a blur of training and hospital visits. Marcus's body slowly recovers from the butcher fight, but his mind can't rest. Every time he visits Katie, he sees Dr. Chen in the hallway, a living reminder of Petrov's control. The doctor's guilty glances tell their own story. He's as trapped as Marcus is. Your numbers are actually improving, Dad, Katie says during one visit, her thin fingers intertwined with his. The bruises on his knuckles are hidden by bandages he claims came from work accidents. Dr. Chen says I might qualify for the new treatment soon. Marcus forces a smile, wondering if even this hope is part of Petrov's manipulation. That's great news, sweetheart. The nurses showed me the video, she adds quietly. The one of your fight. His heart stops. Katie, it's okay. I know why you're doing it. Her grip tightens. But please be careful. I need my dad more than I need any treatment. That evening, at Sophia's makeshift gym in her garage, Marcus hits the heavy bag with controlled fury. His right hand is stronger now, though the nerve damage still limits his power. Sophia watches his form while Jerry works his police contacts on the phone. The DA's office is moving too slowly, Jerry reports, hanging up. They've been building this case for months, trying to connect Petrov to bigger players. They can't move until they have everything lined up. Katie doesn't have months, Marcus grunts between punches, and Petrov's already advertising the next fight. Sophia checks her phone, showing them the underground fighting message boards. The upcoming match is being billed as the Marine versus the Serpent, a fighter known for targeting opponents' injuries with surgical precision. Vicente the Serpent Rodriguez, Sophia reads. Former MMA fighter, disqualified for excessive brutality. Specialized in submission holds that ended careers. She looks at Marcus. Petrov's not taking chances this time. He's matched you with someone who can cripple you without killing you. Marcus steps away from the bag, unwrapping his hands. Then we need leverage before the fight. Maybe we already have some, Jerry says. I've been thinking about the butcher's fight. The betting patterns were weird, too coordinated. Like the money laundering wasn't just about cleaning cash, but about specific transactions. What do you mean? Think about it. Why does a criminal organization run fixed fights? Sure, betting lets them clean money, but there are easier ways to do that. No, they're using these fights to settle debts, make payments, establish hierarchies. Sophia catches on. The butcher was supposed to hurt Marcus badly enough to force him to work for Petrov. But what if that wasn't just about controlling a fighter? What if Petrov promised someone else they'd get to see the famous Marine broken? A new voice joins the conversation. You're smarter than you look. They spin around to find Ray Martinez in the garage doorway, his face still showing bruises from their earlier encounter. But he's alone, and his stance isn't threatening. How did you... Jerry starts. Find you? Please. The whole neighborhood knows where the famous cut woman lives. Ray steps inside, hands raised to show he's unarmed. And right now, I'm probably the only friend you've got. Marcus moves between Ray and the others. Last time we met, you were threatening to cut up my face. Last time we met, I didn't know you were being set up. Ray's voice is bitter. Just like I was. Just like all of us in Los Lobos territory. Understanding dawns. Petrov's been using the gangs, Marcus says. Ray nods. Territorial disputes, protection rackets, distribution routes, it all gets settled in his warehouse. The fighters are just proxies. The betting? That's how payments get made, how territory gets divided. Your fight with the butcher? That was supposed to show everyone what happens when you don't play by Petrov's rules. Why are you telling us this? Because Los Lobos used to mean something in this neighborhood. We protected people, kept the real predators out. Now we're just Petrov's puppets. Ray pulls out his phone. And I've got proof. Account numbers, dates, names. Enough to bring it all down. Jerry takes the phone, scrolling through documents. This is what the DA needs, but why now? Because Petrov's getting greedy. The experimental treatment program at the hospital? It's not just about controlling fighters. They're using it to pressure doctors into writing prescriptions, helping them move product through the hospital's supply chain. Marcus thinks of Dr. Chen's guilty eyes, of Katie's hope for treatment. They're using sick kids as leverage. Exactly. And that's a line too far. Ray heads for the door. The fight with the serpent? It's not just about hurting you. Petrov's bringing in buyers from overseas. Big demonstration of his control over the city. Why should we trust you? Sophia demands. You shouldn't. But check those documents and remember, sometimes the enemy of your enemy is just the weapon you need. After Ray leaves, they spend hours going through the information. Bank transfers disguised as betting losses, shell companies hidden behind legitimate businesses, a whole criminal empire built on blood and broken bones. This changes everything, Jerry says. With this evidence, it changes nothing, Marcus interrupts. Not in time for Katie. The DA won't move fast enough, and if Petrov suspects we're talking to law enforcement... Sophia puts a hand on his shoulder. So what's the play? Marcus stares at the heavy bag, at his wrapped hands that have already given so much. We give Petrov his show, but not the one he's expecting. The serpent will try to cripple you, Sophia warns. Let him try. Marcus turns to them, his eyes hard with determination. Sometimes the best way to spring a trap is to step into it willingly, but first, we need to set some traps of our own. As they start planning, Marcus's phone buzzes, a text from Dr. Chen. Katie's latest tests. Running out of time. I'm sorry. The message confirms what he already knows. In 1 week, he'll step into the ring with the serpent, but the real fight won't be against his opponent. It'll be a battle for his daughter's life, for his soul, and for the future of a neighborhood caught in Petrov's web. Sometimes the hardest punch to throw is the one that hits your own demons. 3 days before the fight with the serpent, everything falls apart. Marcus is training at Sophia's garage when Jerry bursts in, his face ashen. Ray's dead. The news hits like a body blow. What happened? Car accident. Very convenient timing. Jerry's voice drips with sarcasm. Brake lines cut, car went off the bridge, they found these in the wreck. He holds up a plastic bag containing waterlogged papers, copies of the documents Ray had shown them. Sophia curses in Spanish. Petrov found out. It gets worse, Jerry continues. The DA's office was raided this morning. Internal affairs investigation, very sudden. Every agent working the Petrov case has been suspended pending review. Marcus unwraps his hands slowly, processing the implications. They've got people inside law enforcement. All the way up, the whole operation's been compromised. Anyone who might have helped us is either dead, suspended, or running scared. The garage door opens again. This time it's Pete, and his face tells them the news isn't getting better. They're at the bar, he says. Petrov's men. They're tearing the place apart, claiming they're looking for drugs. They've already scared away half my regular customers. Marcus's phone rings. Dr. Chen's number. His hands shake as he answers. Mr. Stone. The doctor's voice is professional, controlled, but there's fear underneath. There's been a complication with Katie's case. The ethics board met this morning. They've removed her from consideration for the experimental treatment program. The world stops. Why? They cited concerns about the funding source for her current treatments. suggested there might be irregular income streams involved. A pause. I'm sorry. I tried to fight it, but how long? Marcus's voice sounds strange to his own ears. Without the new treatment, weeks, maybe a month. The doctor's clinical tone cracks. They're watching me. I can't help anymore. I'm sorry. The phone falls from Marcus's numb fingers. Sophia catches him as his legs give out, helps him to a chair. Through the fog of shock and grief, he hears the others talking urgently. We need to run, Jerry's saying. Take Katie. Get her to another hospital, another state. They'll find us, Sophia counters. You saw what happened to Ray, and Katie's too weak to travel. Then we fight back, go public, expose everything, and watch Petrov's people in law enforcement bury it? Watch more people die? Marcus's voice cuts through their argument. When's the earliest I can fight? They all turn to stare at him. What? Sophia asks. The Serpent. The big show for Petrov's buyers. When? Tomorrow night, Jerry says slowly. But you're not ready. Your body hasn't fully recovered from the butcher. Make the call. Marcus stands, his decision made. Tell Petrov I want to move the fight up. Tomorrow night. That's suicide, Sophia protests. The Serpent's had weeks to prepare. He knows all your injuries, your weaknesses. Good. Marcus moves to the heavy bag, starts wrapping his hands again. Let him think he knows everything. Let them all think they know everything. Understanding dawns on Jerry's face. You're going to throw the fight. No. Marcus's voice is steel. I'm going to give Petrov exactly what he wants. A show. But not the one he's expecting. He turns to them, and they step back involuntarily. The man standing before them isn't the tired veteran or the broken-down boxer. Something harder has taken his place. Ray died trying to expose them. Katie's dying because they control the system. Pete's losing his business. Dr. Chen's being forced to watch children suffer. His fists clench. Tomorrow night, Petrov's bringing in all his connections, his buyers, his corrupt officials. Everyone who profits from this will be there. They'll kill you, Sophia whispers. Maybe. But first, I'm going to give them a show they'll never forget. He looks at each of them. I need your help. All of you. One last time. They spend the next hours planning. Jerry works his remaining police contacts, finding out which officials will attend. Sophia studies videos of the Serpent's fights, identifying patterns. Pete spreads word through the neighborhood about what's really happening at the warehouse. Late that night, Marcus visits Katie in the hospital. She's sleeping, peaceful despite the machines monitoring her decline. He memorizes her face, remembering her as a little girl watching his championship fights on TV, wearing his boxing robe that was too big for her. I promised you everything would be okay, he whispers. I mean to keep that promise. Outside her room, he runs into a nurse, one of the few staff members not under Petrov's influence. She slips him a note. Loading dock. Midnight tomorrow. Friends ready to help. The resistance is growing. People tired of living under Petrov's shadow, tired of watching their neighborhood decay, their children suffer. Tomorrow night isn't just about one fight, one father, one dying girl. It's about breaking a system that profits from pain. Back at Sophia's garage, Marcus trains through the night. Each punch carries the weight of promises made and broken. Each combination rehearses the moves that will either save or doom them all. Sometimes the darkest moment comes just before dawn, and sometimes the hardest hit isn't the one you take. It's the one you choose to deliver, knowing the cost. The warehouse looks different tonight. Luxury cars line the street outside. Men in expensive suits mingle with corrupt officials. Petrov has staged this like a high-end boxing event, complete with spotlights and a professional announcer. But Marcus sees the predators beneath the polish. Everyone here profits from others' pain. In the makeshift locker room, Sophia wraps his hands one last time. The Serpent's in rare form, she warns. Already took out 2 sparring partners this morning. He's enjoying this. Good. Marcus tests the wraps. Let him enjoy it. Where's Jerry? In position. Pete's got his people ready too. Just ... She grabs his face like she used to before championship fights. Whatever happens out there, remember who you are. The crowd roars as the serpent enters the ring, lean, tattooed, moving with coiled violence. His reputation for breaking opponents hasn't been exaggerated. 3 careers ended this year, alone. Marcus walks out to silence. The spectators have already written him off. The aging champion, the broken warrior. Perfect. Even Petrov, watching from his elevated VIP section with his international buyers, looks smugly confident. No referee tonight, no rules, just 2 men and whatever conscience they bring to the ring. The bell rings.